Well, I just got it, so I'm still haven't fully read it yet, trying to digest it, and I'll have more to say next week after I have a chance to dig into it, put my own analysis on it. But I think the take-home message should be that, of course, the numbers, the absolute numbers, $47 billion worth of debt is sobering, but there is an optimistic path forward. We see that we have an abundance of green energy here, and we can capitalize on investments around the world, and Newfoundland and Labrador can be a leader in the green transition that's occurring globally right now. So I know that there's probably some anxieties out there about it, but as I've said from day one, there will be public consultations on this. This is a series of recommendations. It's not government policy. It's a series of recommendations. So we will consult on this and do what's needed in order to save the province from ultimate financial doom.
Dave Moyagrim was very cut and dry about the situation Newfoundland and Labrador is in. There are 78 recommendations in there. You say you're going to go through consultations. This is not policy. But it essentially lies in government's hands here now what path they take. Are you looking to actually implement some of these recommendations?
Well, as we've said from the beginning, we'll consult with the public, and every stakeholder and public, if anyone in the public will have a chance to have their say. And we'll formulate that and act on it accordingly. There's a lot of recommendations in there, and there's ones that, you know, frankly, I can't speak to immediately right now. I've not done my own analysis on it. But overall, the theme is that we're in a tough spot, but there is a path forward, and there's reason for optimism.
Moyagrim said that she was surprised by the sheer amount of data that's available, and that given that data, it's surprising that the government hasn't been more active. How do you explain that?
Yeah, so I can't comment on what's happened in the past, and frankly, I'm not here to assign blame. I got into this job as a politician to take action. I knew when we got into this, when I got into this, remember, it was just around the same time that Premier Ball said that we couldn't afford to borrow money anymore. So I knew what I was getting into. I can't comment on past governments. I can't comment on why data hasn't been put together and formulated and tabulated in what I understand to be a nice, concise package for everyone to read right now. So I can't comment on that. What I will comment on is that we will need to take action now. We can't whistle past the graveyard any further.
Is there anything in this report that's off the table today?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I have to read the full report. I've read some of the executive summary, haven't read the full report, so that would be a bit premature. I will say this, I'm going to read it on the weekend, and we will have a public address next week after I get a chance to digest it.
What do you think of eliminating the Francophone School Board, given the charter?
Well, there's a constitutional issue there. So, as I said, you know, I have to do my own analysis on this, just because people made recommendations, and I thank them for it. This is a group of intelligent, bright, successful Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who I asked to think outside the box. Because to your point earlier, Patrick, the status quo is not working. And so we need to think outside the box. Doesn't mean we have to do everything that was suggested outside the box, but we asked them to deliver these recommendations. We're going to look at it, do our own analysis, and then try to formulate a plan and a strategy over 5 to 10 years, mind you, to fix this place. We didn't get here overnight, but we certainly need to act now in order to save the future of the province. And there is an optimistic one there in a green economy, in a clean economy as we transition forward.
Are you concerned that if some of these recommendations aren't implemented and fairly soon, that the fiscal situation of the province may soon be out of your hands to decide what happens with?
I never got into this to be the last Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, and I'm going to assure the people of this province that that's not going to happen. You know, we have to deal with, frankly, Muskrat Falls immediately, and those negotiations are ongoing with the federal government. It takes up a lot of my time. It's a top priority for me, as it should be for every one of you at home. This is an incredibly important problem that the province is facing right now. It's $600 million per year of mitigation. So that's $600 million that we just throw away, January 1. Never see it again. It's worse than credit card debt because no one's even making anything off it. It just disappears. That's how much of an anchor around our feet this project is. But we can't continue to build. Like I said this during my leadership, there's a $1.2 billion fiscal gap every year. Of course, this continues to compound, and eventually we're going to hit the fiscal ceiling where we don't have maneuverability anymore. Right now we do. We need to act, but it can't be, the cure can't be worse than the disease. It has to be balanced, it has to be measured, and it has to be fair. And that's part of the public consultation process. But there is a positive path forward here, despite the massive challenges that we face. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians have faced challenges like this before, and we've always risen to that challenge. It's incumbent upon us as a generation, as a people, to meet that challenge head on, to have the courage or the convictions to meet that challenge so that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians can remain a proud people and live here for generations to come.
The report suggests a 6-year timeline to reaching a balanced budget. Do you think that that's a realistic timeline?
Again, I have to get into, I'm not going to commit one way or the other, but I certainly think in talking to the Minister of Finance, the Deputy Premier, outside of this report, we think that that is an achievable objective.
What do you say to the people who are now reading through this report or seeing our takes on it, that it's looking at increasing taxes, it's looking at reducing services for a period of time? What do you say to these people that are saying, you know what, the grass looks a little bit greener outside of Newfoundland and Labrador?
First of all, with respect to taxes, I'd encourage you to look at other tax jurisdictions across the country. We're the lowest in terms of some personal income tax brackets in Atlantic Canada. We're not a low tax jurisdiction. I mean, those taxes were set and rolled back when oil was at $100 a barrel or thereabouts. That's no longer the case anymore. We need to look at the levers available to us, and they are limited. Taxes is one, services is another, our asset portfolio is another. We need to look at those assets that have been built up since Confederation. Are those the assets, just like you were managing your own portfolio, are those the assets that you truly need in your portfolio right now to create sustainability in your own lives? We need to look at that in the same lens for government. So there are many options available to us. I see this report as being optimistic for the future. Yeah, sure, there's some tough medicine that we need to figure out how we're going to take. But to borrow an analogy from my old life, we may be in a damage control situation for the patient, but the patient is going to survive as long as we make the right decisions right now. And that's the challenge that faces us as leaders, and these aren't political ones. It wouldn't matter who's sitting in that desk, behind that desk upstairs on the 8th floor. This is the harsh reality that faces the province right now. But again, there is a path forward that is measured, balanced, and fair.
Many of these recommendations are hard pills to swallow, which I'm sure you expected. Do you have the political capital right now with your size in the House and in general to enact most of this?
This is, whoever has political, this is beyond political capital. This is an economic, fiscal problem that's facing the province. And it's less about capital and it's more about courage, because it wouldn't matter if David Brazel was standing here, if Ches Crosby was standing here. This is the reality that we face. And I look forward to working with Mr. Brazel and others to ensure that we're able to right the ship. Because this is bigger than any political party. This is bigger than any one government. This is a problem that faces the future of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we need to put political differences aside, recognize the problem as it's defined, and come up with solutions. We were lucky to have a report that has many solutions. We may not take them all. Of course, we're not going to take them all. We said from the beginning that we wanted ideas that were outside the status quo, that were outside the walls of the Confederation building or the legislature, ones that were unbiased and came with a different lens. That's what we got. I'm looking forward to really kind of getting down and seeing what's palatable and what's not, but I also want to hear from the people of the province, and that's why we're doing broad consultations, as I said during the campaign, to see what people think. Because I think the electorate, the people of the province, are educated. They know that we've been booking billion-dollar deficits year after year, and they understand how that compounds. And so I think everyone in the public understands that there's a bright future here, but that we have to navigate the path forward together. This is not about me. Whoever's standing here, you can hate on me all you want, but someone has to deal with this. I left my old life to deal with it. I knew what I was getting into, and I think the general public realized that we have to navigate this together. There's going to be a little bit of pain maybe for everybody, but it'll be there are big items there, big transition items that we can really recreate and redefine in Newfoundland and Labrador for the future. We have an abundance of green resources, and we need to capitalize on that. There's going to be trillions of dollars of investments that have been displaced from non-renewable energy investments that we can capitalize here in the province. We just scratched the surface of our renewables resources. We have proximity to Europe. We have proximity to the rest of Canada and to the eastern seaboard. We really are just scratching the surface of our renewable energy, and I think we need to position and pivot now. But I do recognize the value of oil and gas right now. We need to continue to develop that while it is valuable.
Is the province looking to privatize NL Hydro?
I haven't gotten into that level of detail just yet, Kelly, but we're going to be doing a full public consultation on all the recommendations, and people will have a chance to have their say, including any stakeholders involved.
When the talking's done, there are hard decisions that have to be made, and you are a rookie premier. Are you prepared to make these hard decisions if cuts have to be made and the backlash that follows?
Someone has to make these decisions, Jeremy. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a rookie or if you got 3 All-Star jerseys on. Someone has to make these decisions. The time is now. The time to act is now. There's $47 billion worth of debt. It's $200,000 per worker in the province. That's an extra nice mortgage for people. We can't afford to continue doing what we're doing. But there's a huge opportunity here for us to pivot and be leaders in a green economy around the world. We need to recognize one of the has been a hindrance perhaps to us in the past, but it is now an incredible added value, if you will, an advantage, is our size. We can pivot quickly if we're all in the same direction. And we need to understand that there are incredible opportunities within technology, within oil and gas still, and within the green economy moving forward, where we can really develop a sustainable future here for our children. So of course I want to be a part of that decision making. Of course, even if there are tough decisions, and there are, we want to be a part of it so that 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, people can look back and say, you know what, they were tough, but they did the right thing in order for us to live here, to raise a family here, and continue to develop economic opportunities here.
Is this one of the reasons why you got into politics, I guess? Because you said you knew what you were getting into. It was pretty bad for a lot of people, but is that sort of what you're hoping, that you'll be able to come in and make all these fixes and be looked at 25, 30 years from now as the guy who turned this province around?
Well, it's not about a guy or a girl. It's about a team, and it's about everybody in this province right now recognizing that although there are challenges, there are equal opportunities ahead of us. I mean, the reality is, when the challenges that I saw, and I think are laid out, or I hope are laid out in that report, are that, you know, we have an infrastructure, a social infrastructure, a physical infrastructure that's based on the 1970s. The world has changed. Newfoundland and Labrador has changed. The demographics have incredibly changed. You know, 6 youth to 1 senior now, half a youth to you know, it's crazy how much things have changed. But we haven't really evaluated our programs, and when programs seem to be not working, we seem to think the easy political fix is to add more money to those programs. But we need to look at, are those programs, is that infrastructure, social or physical, really delivering the services to the communities to meet their needs today?
Who are you looking to speak with first after going through this report and after the weekend? Will it be the unions? Will it be your own ministers? Who are you looking to speak with first?
Well, certainly we'll chat with Cabinet and Caucus and the opposition, and very interested to get together with the labor leaders. I'm hoping to formulate like a labor summit, if you will, so that we can sit down and look at the report and look at some of the findings of the report and see if there's I mean, this has to be a collective solution. The reality is we can't keep adding debt. I mean, our debt and our debt financing is number 2 in our budget. Once we throw on $600 million for Muskrat Falls mitigation, plus the financing costs of Muskrat Falls on top of it, we're into $2.5, $2.7 billion, and we haven't paid a teacher, we haven't paved a road, we haven't paid a doctor, we haven't turned on the lights in the Confederation building. So we need to really handle that debt, and I look forward to working with collectively with unions and other stakeholders to figure out, okay guys, this is the problem. I'm open to solutions. Here are some solutions. How do we navigate this together? Because at the end of the day, if we can't come to some agreement, the government, it doesn't matter if it's me or Brazel or Mr. Crosby or Ms. Coffin, someone who's sitting here, standing here, is not going to be able to pay you. So we need to come up with good solutions together in order to change this paradigm and frankly, save the province.
One last question, because we're running out of time. Dipping into your background here as a former orthopedic surgeon, do you think that it's realistic or reasonable to be able to move 4 RHAs into 1?
Well, you know, I'm not going to comment specifically on the corporate structure. What I will say is that I did see significant inefficiencies within simple things like procurement for health authorities, procuring drapes, surgical masks, gowns, hip replacements. Instead of fully exercising the scale of what is a small province, 500,000, it's barely worth a commercial enterprise coming down here and selling us things, and oftentimes some of these specialized items. But we're not doing it together. So there are incredible efficiencies. So we end up paying, for example, a hip replacement, we end up paying a higher sticker price because we can't work together in an efficient, effective, aligned procurement capacity. So incorporating the corporate services behind closed doors is certainly something that I'm interested in looking at, because I think it can be done effectively and well. And then that money saved within the healthcare department, delivering healthcare services, can be either reinvested in patient care or the social determinants of health, which is the economic argument I've always proposed with respect to the budget envelope of healthcare.